All right, seems like everyone's here. Again, thank you all for attending today. This is episode 4 of Review Tracker's virtual series. And today we are welcoming our partner and social media industry expert, Hootsuite. This will be Lauren O'Sullivan. She is the ISV Partner Manager for EMEA. And I am Mary Frances Duggins. I am the Partnership Marketing Coordinator here at Review Trackers. Today, Lauren will be covering a lot of the different customer journey in social media. So Lauren, take it away.
Yeah, thanks, Mary Frances. Nice to be here. Thanks for having me. So my name's Lauren O'Sullivan. As mentioned, I'm the ISV Partner Manager for our EMEA region, typically based out of the UK in our London office, but as COVID has impacted so many of us, it's impacted me, and I decided to come home to Vancouver, British Columbia, and Canada to be here with family. So taking advantage of the mountains and the beach for now, but we'll be headed back to pub culture in a little while, I'm sure. So just a little bit of context into what I do at Hootsuite. So as an ISV Partner Manager, I'm responsible for ensuring that both our internal sales teams and our partner sales teams, or teams at large rather, are enabled to support our customers across the breadth of our product set. So the Hootsuite approach to social media is an integrated one, an ecosystem-based approach. A social publishing tool is typically the most essential first step. Analytics would be second, but then depending on social strategy and the industry in which you operate, you might need other integrations. And so we've got these partnerships set up to allow for that plug and play model, and I'm responsible for those. So outside of partnering with review trackers, we partner with user-generated content partners, and then compliance and digital risk, as well as social listening. So happy to answer any other questions about specific partners or what those sort of buzzwords mean in the industry, but that is who we are responsible for. And previous to that, I was a customer success manager at Hootsuite for the better part of 4 years. So I worked with our largest regulated customers in our New York and surrounding areas. And for that, we implemented the solutions, we developed their social strategies, we talked about product, how to use it, how to take advantage and streamline processes. And then, of course, and probably most importantly, established what the success metrics were. So how are we actually demonstrating a successful program, reporting on that, and demonstrating to leadership what that actually translates into from a ROI standpoint for the business. So without further ado, we'll jump on in. And I'm going to be talking about the importance of social media in a changing customer journey today. So in terms of agenda items, we have seen many changes to our digital landscape, many changes to our world, and therefore many changes to our digital landscape and how a customer actually purchases or engages with our brands over the last, I can't believe it now, but it's what, 3 or 4 months, depending on your geo. And so we have to absolutely stop our social strategies, our marketing strategies at large, and reset, and then develop new ones and sort of pivot as time goes on and the current context adapts. So I'll be reviewing some of the strategies that we've implemented that we've seen be successful, and then talk about how Hootsuite, the social team, actually changed our strategy and what's worked. Actually, just before I move on, we'll do questions at the end, so keep them, throw them in the chat, and we'll be happy to review those. So really the current context of where we're sitting is not so much a what now, but it's a what next, right? So it's not, oh my goodness, what's going on in the world? We had this 2020 plan, how do we reset? We've actually already done that. We've aligned with current context, but now it's shifting on an ongoing basis. So how can we continue to do that? How can we anticipate what next month might look like in a digital space, and where social media will be most effective in supporting our customers? And so these are the 3 key areas that we're going to talk through today in terms of how Hootsuite broke up what being relevant looks like. This is it. So first, being visible. Second, as I said, being relevant. And third, optimizing for context. So we'll start here with being visible. And quickly, I just want to recap. I'm sure we're very much aware, all of us on the line, but the customer journey is changing. It's gone from a physical space into a digital space. And this, of course, precedes COVID. This is an ever-changing shift to comfort levels in digital across geos, across demographics of people, moving away from the billboard radio and into the social and digital space, right? So just being cognizant that it's not just about potentially advocacy. So people are really well aware of your brand and therefore they follow you on Instagram and want to share your content. It's how do you generate that initial awareness, move that person through evaluation into acquisition of your actual product, engaging with you. So maybe it's customer support, social customer care, and then becoming so aligned with your brand that they want to be an advocate on behalf of you. So we're going to be going through some of these seize the moment lines here, and these are really the action items, that the plans to move forward. So this one being social has a central role to play in keeping brand awareness strong, even as a customer mindshare shrinks. So as we all are aware, you know, a crisis hits and everybody pauses. For the most part, maybe aside from toilet paper and stockpiling some food, nobody's going out to market and discovering new brands that they want to follow and therefore purchase from. It's a little bit more of a level set, and therefore brand mindshare shrinks. People don't have the same capability to ingest the information and therefore transact. And so we need to be cognizant of this, but keep in mind how much of a role social can play in making sure that we are still a touch point on an ongoing basis. And as we're expecting the lower funnel to shrink, we need to reassess what the formula for branded content looks like. So how are we going to take that 2020 plan and potentially reassess it? So this is sourced from the IPA. Oh yeah, it's there on the bottom there, which is sort of gold standard for how to grow your brands with ads and content, right? And this is their formula that they've established: 60% brand building, 40% sales activation. So brand building being engagement content, emotional content, those how-to tips, things that really drive home with the individual, whereas sales activation, as we know, are more targeted comms, sometimes ads, and then performance marketing tactics. So typically, actually, from our experience, we do see that brands lean too heavily onto the sales activation side. And so now with shrinking customer mind share, where really they're not so much bottom funnel, we need to generate more pipeline, we need to be top of funnel. So let's focus on the brand building activities, because they'll become less and less, or sorry, the lower funnel tactics are going to become less and less successful. So let's generate as much interest and understanding of who we are as a brand as we possibly can. And in a poll conducted by Edelman, they actually took a look at how to communicate that we're helping. So what are the most successful tactics for a brand to be relevant and stay visible on social during this time? And it came down to two factors. So 89% of respondents said that they are interested in seeing how brands are supporting and protecting their employees and customers. So how are we keeping spaces safe? How are we moving to digital? How are we creating relief funds? What kind of messaging do we support more broadly in a global context? Do we support people in different geos differently? People are quite interested in understanding what that looks like, because it creates that brand loyalty. If they're on the same page with you from more of an ethical, moral standpoint, you're more likely to be more aligned. And then second to that, at 88% of respondents, they want to know how a brand is actually changing on an operational level. So how are we actually changing, let's say, in-person point of purchase, now that things are starting to open up a little bit in different geos, that make people feel comfortable and are safe and follow regulatory guidelines. So really, it's just providing a transparent view of an organization, which inherently builds loyalty from your customer base. So this is an example of one of our customers, Adtalem Global Education. So they're a medical university, basically. They've got medical practitioner staff, nurses, and doctors that they're training. And they leverage Tint, which is a user-generated content partner of Hootsuite, to basically create a campaign, #Care for Caregivers. And this was early stages of COVID-19, but basically just giving all of the caregivers a voice and demonstrating what they're doing and asking for support more broadly, but giving their students and employees an opportunity to shine and really demonstrate the incredible work that they're doing. And I realize healthcare is probably the most obvious example of this. We've all seen the many, many TikToks, but this crossed multiple different verticals within our customer group, at least. So this is a customer, Sodexo, and they took a notable approach on social as well. So if you're not aware, Sodexo is a food services and facilities management organization. And so they've got a lot of frontline essential workers as well. And the approach that they took immediately in terms of brand messaging was complete hold on product, not pushing any kind of specific brand information, but talking about employee well-being. So really not even addressing the customer, but addressing themselves and saying, these are our operational changes. This is what's important to us. It's the well-being and sustenance of our employee group. And so we're going to create a 30 million euro relief fund for our employees. And that's the approach they took. This is their CEO sort of announcing this on social. And why it was so important to their brand. And this generated an incredible amount of interest, follows, liked, all of those vanity metrics. But you can just imagine the brand alignment, and other organizations that they work with would say, like, they're a leader in the space. We need to replicate this type of approach to market. So as I promised, going to be talking about some of the Hootsuite implemented approaches as well. So this is responsible publishing and engagement strategy. So immediately when COVID-19 hit, Hootsuite put out across all of our social channels this post. It said, a friendly reminder, now's a good time to stop and review the social media posts that you have scheduled and consider if there is still appropriate or relevant. The same goes for your brand social ads. So friendly reminder, if you're telling people to come to your happy hour, or you're saying, hey, we've got this in-person conference in 2 months from now, please register. Or, hey, this event is happening, sporting event is happening in a different geo, it's probably a good time to remove that content, right? It's completely inappropriate and irrelevant to what's going on now. And people would just say, do you have any sense of what's going on in the world and how much my life has been impacted here? And so really it was about level setting, take a look at that strategy, eliminate content that doesn't resonate anymore, and then listening. So what's going on in the social world? Let's see what our customers are saying. What's going on for geo? How can we address people in a meaningful way? And aside from related to COVID, the Black Lives Matter movement that's been taking place globally, this is an example from Hootsuite as well. We felt as an organization that that was not something that we could remain silent on. We needed to address it at large. And so we had our Hootsuite Connection, our digital conference this year. We moved to a digital setting because of the need to do so. We canceled it altogether, and we said that this is a moment where we're going to create space for people to breathe and advocate for one another. These are the lives that we're recognizing. Enough is enough. It's not time for us to take a seat and have a discussion about our own business practices in the social media marketing or sphere at large. It's a time to take a step back. And we haven't come out yet with a new date. I anticipate it being in the fall. But this is a way that we demonstrated, this is our perception, our value set as an organization. This is how we're going to approach it, and this is how we leverage social to do so. And the brand loyalty and interest garnered from this was astronomical as well. So second point is be relevant, and I think that's really goes hand in hand with being visible. Being visible is, this is our messaging, this is how we're approaching right now, being ever so transparent. Being relevant is also really challenging to navigate as things change. It's one thing might be relevant one week, and then all of a sudden you're in, I'm in Vancouver here, and restaurants are back open, and it almost feels like we're halfway back to normal, right? And so taking into account of what is going on for individual people and being able to respond to that is what's going to become important. So Hootsuite has a tool called Hootsuite Inbox, and Hootsuite Inbox is an aggregator of all private messaging or direct messaging systems on social networks. So we can aggregate those within our tool, and you can respond from one place, right? Within the first couple weeks of COVID-19, we saw massive spikes in the adoption of this tool. It was basically 50% week over week growth. So what that means is the organizations that we work with and therefore leverage Hootsuite to engage with their customer set or their follower group, we're increasing their one-to-one support by 50% week over week. So this is enormous, right? It just demonstrates the importance of a consumer wanting to go direct to a brand and getting that one-on-one advice, interaction, understanding of what's going on, what kind of operational changes they're making, for example, in this new world of social distancing or isolating from home. And I think what this really demonstrates in real time is, why do people actually engage with us in the social space? And I think often we think, oh, because it's, you know, entertaining content, or it's a break from our day, or we want to see a cool video, or, you know, something that happened across the world. But most often when it comes to an individual interacting with an organization, it's because they're interested in customer service. So they need some kind of resolution, or they have questions about a product before going to point of purchase. They're interested in what your new products might be. So what's the new Nike running shoe? And then I might DM on Instagram and say, hey, I'm confused about these two product lines. Which one's better for my type of running style? Advertising, so the opportunity to really be targeted and get a sense of what's out there for me based on my needs on an ongoing basis. And it gives people the opportunity to interact with a brand directly, right? So what's your value? What's your product? What's your sentiment around global context? I want to know, because I am aligned with your brand. So just a good reminder to level set on why people are engaging with you, and therefore what type of support and content do you need to provide to those observers. No channel builds relationships like social. Communicate this critical strength to leadership. I don't think I've ever worked with one of my team members at a company that I work with who didn't say the challenge is reporting upwards, right? So we do that through metrics, but we can also do that through storytelling, demonstrating that you're supporting your customer group through a time of crisis, and therefore increasing followership or engagement rates or whatever your metric might be is huge. So making sure that we're communicating this critical strength to leadership. This is becoming even more poignant during these times, because it's one of the fewer ways that we can interact with our customer groups. And again, in terms of how Hootsuite actually implemented this, this is our example, but many, many organizations have done this, is through employee advocacy. So, you know, you want to make sure that you're engaging with your employees as much as your customers, often more often, right? So making sure that employees are fully up to date, there's no loss in communication, even though we're working from home in a remote space. I'm relocated halfway around the world right now, but I feel very much in touch with my teams because of GoToMeeting, Zoom calls, we're pinging all the time. I can get all the content I need from internal channels, social media, and this is one way for us to do it. So basically, when a Hootsuite employee is onboarded at Hootsuite, they get access to our tool, Hootsuite Amplify, which is an employee advocacy tool. And so all of our internal content, whether it be about a new VP starting, a change in process, you know, upcoming events, is all published on Amplify. So I can read all of our internal content and get updates on my mobile device on an ongoing basis. And then part two, there's actually external content. So if I want to have my voice and post to my LinkedIn, this is what's going on. This is an upcoming event. This is Hootsuite's stance on XYZ issue. This is how we're engaging with our community. I can publish that content as well. So we basically created a topic category in Amplify called Stay Connected at the start of COVID-19. And because of the publishing activity that's gone through that topic category on Amplify, we've been able to reach 268,000 individual people on social media. So multiple of those people engage with us on a regular basis, of course, but that is the breadth of the people that we were able to engage with as a result of just this topic category. So that's ignoring all of our other topic categories, which we, of course, still publish too. So really great way to, one, engage with internal employees, and then two, engage with our consumer group. So third and final topic category here is optimizing for context and mindset. Again, similar stuff, right? So we're being visible, we're being relevant, we're knowing who our customer is, we're publishing things that will be that will resonate with them. And then we're going to optimize for context and mindset. So understanding what's going on for each of our customers depending on geo. And just taking a look here, so this is from the conference board, which if you don't take a look every once in a while, not just social media related at all, it's breadth of statistics and analysis across the board. Really interesting discovery here into perception, consumer confidence, essentially globally. So this is how quickly do nations think that they're going to recover from the results of COVID-19. So both health related and economic, their personal spheres and sort of national wide. So you can see there the yellow color, kind of mustardy green, are the countries that think, oh, we're going to bounce back. We've got this. We think our consumer behaviors are going to shift back to normal. Therefore, our 2020 strategies may very well be implemented. We're not concerned. All the way to the red, where this is going to be long. This is going to take a really long time. And so we need to be adapting to our very, very much changed sphere. So all to say here, it's not the same globally, right? Unfortunately, we didn't all have, some of the more controlled instances of COVID-19 that, let's say, New Zealand, for example, had. Very few cases. They're an island. They protected quite well. There's a lot of shifting going on in the globe, and so we need to pay attention to local context for consumers. This is potential US GDP scenarios. So depending on how COVID-19 progresses, whether we start to open things up and the infection rate spikes, how will that impact national GDP? There's 4 different scenarios that the conference board lays out here, basically all to say that we will not see any kind of normalcy until the end of the year for sure. That's what they're anticipating here. So, maybe we'll be lucky, and it says May reboot there, a bit dated, but summer reboot, let's say, and the economy will bounce back. Maybe not likely for all locations, and so we need to anticipate fluctuation here or difference throughout the country and world, and think planning in terms of a get back to normal strategy likely won't take place until fall winter. And then finally here, consumer expectations. So this is individual consumers, what they think their new normal, their reality is. And interestingly, people are quite confident that the return of business and business conditions, being able to go into the office, being able to interact on more of a personal basis, not so much over GoToMeeting or Zoom, their job will return back to normal. But income is the piece. So really concern and probably risk management around spending and expenditure, not going back to normal, being quite conservative moving forward. And so as organizations, as brands, and as marketers, we need to think about all of these changing conditions. How does this impact the way that we're going to work with our customers? What are we going to focus on? So really tactical planning, so product, price, place, promotion, is going to be a much smaller segment of what we do. And this goes back to what we were talking about initially, with bottom funnel versus top, focusing on brand strategy and alignment rather than point of purchase, because customer mind share is down. Moving down here, spending more time on strategy. So what is the competitive advantage of my brand? Not taking advantage of the competitive advantage, but knowing it and knowing therefore what product placement looks like or how to engage with customers, what's differentiated across the board in the marketplace. Scenario planning, if X happens, this is how we'll respond. If Y happens, this is how we'll respond. If a customer has an inquiry, for example, how do we want to deal with that directly? And then frameworks to reduce ambiguity. So really that transparency. This is what's going on with our brand. Maybe we didn't handle something appropriately, but this is how we're going to pivot. And that won't fail. That's really creating that brand loyalty of transparency and understanding that we're all in this together and it's in flux and we're learning as we go. And then finally, and this is where we'd recommend spending the bulk of time, especially since we somewhat have the luxury of doing so, is brand diagnosis. So looking at your SWOTs, category entry points, customer insights and segmentation. So who is my customer now? Has it shifted? Should I be reprioritizing targeting, for example? What's the marketing intelligence? Have different brands shifted? Are they no longer tapping into the same customer set as me? and then right to win. So where am I actually going to find the largest advantage? So this is, and shout out quickly, sorry, I should have done this before, to Samuel J. Scott, great content as always, really giving us a breakdown of how we should be spending our time to add value. State Farm is one of our customers, and I won't sing the jingle, but I'm sure you all know it. Good Neighbor Relief Program is their primary approach to market as COVID-19 hit. And really it's about their auto policy holders. They created a relief fund of $2 billion. So this is their approach to understanding context, understanding the impact of the impact of COVID on their specific customer group, especially within a specific product line. But not everyone is going to respond to this with complete trust and thinking, oh yeah, what a transparent org. I completely believe and am aligned to this. And so they saw engagement on their social channels like this guy here, Scott. He said, State Farm isn't doing it either. Don't believe what you hear. Our agent said no such program exists. And this type of thing is going to happen. It's natural that people are going to call you out on what they don't think is true in the social sphere, right? That's what people are looking for, this type of education. But that's okay. So long as we're social listening, we're monitoring what's going on. We have an engagement plan. We can respond to these. So they've got their agent here who quickly jumps on and says, we are indeed doing this, Scott. Your local agent may not have had all the information yet. Basically, we're trying to catch up and inform everyone. Please get them another call and basically give us the opportunity. And that type of response goes a really long way. Custom, you've got the agent's name there, Bree. You've addressed Scott directly and you've addressed his core issue and said, hey, we may not have been ready to deliver, but we are now. And so social has a central role to play in keeping a brand awareness strong, even as customer mindshare shrinks. We've talked about this already. Customer mindshare is shrinking. They may not have all of the loyalty. They may have had some poor experiences through this. It's really just about making sure that you're monitoring and engaging with them to keep them top of mind, keep yourselves top of mind, and make sure that you're addressing primary concerns. And so finally, Hootsuite recommends that you monitor and listen to your customers. We've talked about this already. So really using social listening tools. We partner with Brandwatch and Talkwalker, some of the best in the space, but there are many. You can do social listening by just monitoring, depending on your volume, what's coming in on your social channels natively, if you so choose, but just keeping an eye on both positive and negative. We'd recommend engaging with all content, addressing the negative, thanking the positive, taking a health check of your audience. You know, is there more negative sentiment response to your content at this time? Why might that be? And then having basically a crisis communication plan. So how are you going to actually engage with these users? And focusing on that emotional connection as a result. So this being really important and just consistently understanding your audience and how you're going to be addressing that. And that's where I'll leave you. So 3 primary points there: be visible, be relevant, and understand your context and respond accordingly. Happy to answer.
Thank you so much, Lauren. I know that we're a little bit over time today, but we'll stick around for a couple more minutes if anyone has any questions. No, it's okay. That was a fantastic, very informational. I'm a very visual person, so I think that the chart with all of the countries and how they see the future going, I think it's really important for people to understand that every country is handling it differently. They have a different outlook. So again, if anyone would like to ask some questions, please just drop them in and we'll be happy to answer them. Give you a few minutes. All right, so we have our first question coming in. Any customer examples around Amplify? I'm looking to increase employee morale during these tough times. Good question.
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. Engaging with your internal employee group by basically enabling them to be trusted advisors on behalf of your brand is absolutely a great way to motivate your employees and make them feel loved and heard. If you are in a non-regulated marketplace, oftentimes you can also give them the ability to get a bit creative and edit their content. that you've maybe pre-populated. And so they really feel like they've got a voice and they're an advocate on behalf. Many customers across banks, for example, I'm trying to think of the few that I used to work with actually. Avidya Bank is a really fun example. I really love their program. So they're in the Boston or greater Boston area. They're a community bank. And so really hands-on engagement with the community within their few branches. I think there's 15, I'm going to misquote. Shout out to Kate. She's going to be upset with me for not remembering how many branches they have in the area. But they basically enable their Smarties. They call them their Smarties, their employee advocates. So they've got, or they used to have, an isolated group of people that were the brand advocates. It was such a successful program, and people were very competitively trying to be involved in this Smarties program, that they actually extended it organizational wide. So everybody got access to Amplify. They all had the ability to go through, or had to go through, social media training in order to get the rights to operate in the social sphere on behalf of the organization. We had all of the compliance and regulatory mechanisms in place to make sure that they were remaining compliant, and that's why they went through the social cert internally, and then were able to publish. And the team there at Avidya did a fantastic job. Basically on launch day, they went around to everybody's office when we were in office and put a little how-to guide branded with Hootsuite and Avidya Bank branding on there that said, this is how you set up your account. And then they created Amplify and Avidya Smarties. I actually think Smarties are different in the States, but like M&Ms, I guess, M&Ms. Smarties is like an M&M equivalent in Canada, where they put the little branding on there, and it was Avidya colors. And it was such a great way to engage with people. You know, okay, yeah, here's like an FAQ of how to set new technology, more technology up, right? But then it's like, oh, but I got a treat, I'll do this. And they really saw spikes in engagement. That was pretty cool to see.
Great. Yeah, we have a specific candy called Smarties here too, so I think it gets like confusing across.
The long ones, right? Like the sugary, I think they're called Rockets in Canada.
Oh my gosh, yeah, just see the differences there. And it's, yeah. Oh, it looks like we have another question. Let's see. Cool. I see some brands that hide negative comments and some don't. Any recommendations on this for the retail industry?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the most, the poorest way I've seen, particularly in retail, negative sentiment handled is lack of response. So you can't just express appreciation for positive product feedback or the way that somebody has received what they've purchased. You need to engage with it all. So, hey, really sorry to hear that was your experience. Let's take this offline and have a more significant conversation so we can make it up to you. And then maybe circling back and saying, had the chance to talk to Robert, good stuff. We're going to make sure that the shipping is expedited or whatever it might be. But absolutely, we've seen both. And it's really the responsibility of the customer success manager at Hootsuite to flag that to a customer and say, look, you're getting insane levels of negative sentiment. And we think lots of it is because you're not actually engaging and showing how you're changing. So imagine going on, and reviews are the same, right? You want to see responses to reviews that are action oriented and appreciative of the feedback in either direction. And usually if you go on, you see, okay, there was some negative feedback, but it looks like the brand handled it quite well, and it sounds very fair and like they're aligned to their customer. You might not be as impacted as a net new consumer, right?
Definitely. Another question we just received, do you integrate with TikTok? I've seen more and more interaction around it during COVID.
We interact with TikTok to some extent. We're not doing active publishing to TikTok. For full full integration capabilities, I'm gonna have to go to product. I'm a little out of the loop now that I'm not in customer success anymore. And also my financial customers didn't typically leverage, what was the old one? There was one that was really similar to TikTok back in the day. Vine, that's Vine. Right, yeah, like we never used Vine either. Or Snapchat, like those ones are usually difficult to integrate with. But from a user generated content perspective, we absolutely do. So our partner Tint has an integration with TikTok that they're able to leverage, and Tint basically comes into Hootsuite, much like Review Trackers would. So there are integration capabilities. So it's really dependent on the needs, but we're not leveraging Hootsuite to create TikTok. Definitely not.
Yeah. All right. Does anyone else have any more questions before we wrap things up? All right. Well, it seems that, we got all our questions in. Just a reminder for everyone who's attended and registered, you will receive an email follow-up after this webinar. So thank you all for attending our episode today. Lauren, do you have anything to add?
No, thank you for the time. Sorry I went over. Hopefully it was worth it.
Definitely. All right. Thank you all for attending.
Thanks so much.